Facebook continues to astound both the tech world and the broader business world. There are now over 800, perhaps 900 million members of its community. Its valuation on the second market is somewhere between $70 and $100 billion. And there's nobody in the world who knows more about Facebook than the author of The Facebook Effect, David Kirkpatrick. So David, welcome to TechCrunch TV.
Thanks, Andrew. It's good to be here with you.
The book came out, what, a year ago? A
half ago? It was in June of 2010, so it's like maybe 17 months, something like that.
Well, David, we're at your excellent Techonomy event, and as I asked you in a session, have you changed your opinion of Facebook between when you finished the book, maybe a couple of years ago, and today? The book is very positive, very optimistic about Facebook's impact on the world, on producing more openness, politically, culturally, economically. Are you still as bullish on Facebook as an engine of democracy in the world?
Well, I'll just say what I said in the session when you asked me before, because it would be inconsistent to do otherwise. But so I would say, first of all, you didn't put it that way. You said, am I as optimistic about Facebook generally? And I answered no, simply because I think something at this scale has a harder time continuing to grow, continuing to build its impact than it did when I started working on my book when they had 50 million users. In terms of its...
What year was that?
I started in January of 2008. That's when Zuckerberg said he would work with me, and I started working on it in August of 2008. But if you ask in the context of the social and political impact, which to me is one of the most interesting arenas, I am still extremely bullish about that, and I'm certain it will continue to be massive. And it's already, we've seen the Arab Spring, and we know about that. We heard a lot about that on stage here at Techonomy. But what I think a lot of Americans continue to underestimate is how significant Facebook's presence is in places like Indonesia or South Africa or Chile, or name your country, where for the first time a user-controlled communications network emerges. And in some of these countries, which have repressive governments, that is a catalytic and transformational fact. And so, there's still, I sometimes say, roughly 50 non-democratic countries that Facebook has massive presence in, right? And this is the reason Zuckerberg doesn't any longer say the things in public that he said to me when I was reporting my book about things like, someday there'll be revolutions or things like happening in Colombia every day, but that's happening, and he doesn't want to highlight it because he doesn't want all those 50 non-democratic governments to turn Facebook off, which many of them could do. But it is having a daily impact on empowering people in the political as well as the commercial realm, and that's real.
I think, perhaps you're right about the question. The way I phrased it in the session, and perhaps you can respond on camera now, is whether there was any inconsistency between Facebook continuing to democratize and in some ways radicalize the political and cultural world, whereas the company itself has become more closed, more corporate, more hierarchical.
Yeah. Well, I think the company should be more open. I think Facebook should practice a corporate transparency that is parallel to the transparency that it expects from its users. And I've been disappointed that it hasn't done that more. So in that sense, I see a kind of a contradiction. But what part of the question am I not answering?
No, you're doing a great job.
I mean, I think that, one of the things I said in the session was that I think Zuckerberg has a choice to make, a set of choices that will continue. There'll be an ongoing set of choices that are going to be indefinitely facing him in coming years, which is how much does he want to focus on just making money and satisfying what will be the soon-to-be shareholders, and how much does he want to continue with what initially motivated him, which was to make the world more open and connected. And openness has a lot of manifestations, and it is not just to make it easier for people to reach their ad clients and to get business customers. Although I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that in itself is a social service if the ads are effective enough. Mark believes that ads properly displayed to the right people are useful content, and I agree with him. I don't think advertising has any fundamentally negative quality in its essence. It's a matter of what the ad is and when you see it and whether you want to see it, and whether it gives you information you can use. But if Facebook goes too far in the direction of, pushing the ads to the forefront of the experience, which will inevitably be the pressures from Wall Street and others when they are public and they're going to be reporting quarterly results and all those stupidly systematized things that Wall Street insists upon that are very destructive in many cases to companies' effectiveness and social role and even economic health in the long term. I think short-term measures are going to be the worst thing Facebook can face when it comes to financial stuff. So Facebook should figure out a way, if it possibly can, to resist the short-term financial pressures that being a public company are likely to put on them. And I don't know whether Mark is going to be good at that or not. We haven't seen it yet.
In your book, you're, I think, very good in the way you explain the way in which Facebook went from being a social network or essentially a website to becoming a social platform for the web. How successfully do you think Facebook is navigating that? To what extent is Facebook now becoming perhaps even the operating system for the social web?
Well, if there is an operating system for the social web, it is it. I don't think it has nearly achieved the overwhelming penetration and software sophistication that really would be necessary to do that thoroughly. I think I have been impressed with Facebook's ability to grow and extend its platform. Now, first with the like button and the sort of elementary tools, and now with the Open Graph API and a very, very rich set of functionality that it can deploy across the web. It's interesting, though, that in general, I don't think that those technologies and the platform capabilities are sufficiently exploited by its partners, and most companies still seem to prefer to operate inside Facebook's walled garden as opposed to building Facebook functionality in full glory on their website, which can be done. I think over time that probably will happen. I think it's still Facebook's belief internally that the long-term future for Facebook is to recede somewhat as a site and even to some degree as a brand, and to extend itself more as a platform that is utilized by others. And in my opinion, that is the biggest long-term business opportunity. And that would suggest, to the degree they succeed at it, that they become the social operating system of the internet. But that raises huge questions that I know concern you about the influence of one company as such an integral part of the internet infrastructure, and we've never seen one company play a central role in the internet infrastructure. I mean, maybe since the days when Netscape was the only browser, we haven't seen anything like it since then, and I don't think it's necessarily healthy for a company to play that role. So how Facebook navigates that, or even possibly migrates into being something that's not just a company, if it were to achieve that sort of ubiquity it's not even the internet, it's really in the world, because they're really aiming at being the identity platform for the world. It's not just for the internet, because we're all becoming connected everywhere we go through our devices. We're going to be online all the time. The concept of online goes away. Therefore, the concept of a social platform that's electronic is not just about online, it's about everywhere we go, everything we do. Facebook, I think, can help make our lives better that way. But the set of responsibilities that they're going to acquire if they play that role are just huge.
Would you see their principal competitors in this role to, as you say, almost control the world as being Apple and Google?
I don't think of it as controlling the world. I don't go that far. I think Apple and Google are the only other two companies that have comparable scale, resources, and potential impact, but I don't think either one of them has any hope of playing this role of being the social operating system. I mean, Google Plus is a very good product. It's keeping Facebook honest. It's gaining some users.
So you don't believe it's dead? Some people are saying it's dead.
Google Plus?
Yeah.
I don't think it's dead. I don't think it's going to kill Facebook either. I think it's going to be a moderately successful product, and it's healthy for Facebook that it exists. Apple has no social DNA whatsoever, so Apple is never going to play the role of a social operating system for the world. That's inconceivable to me. So really, if you listen to what I just said, Facebook doesn't really have any competition, and the question is, does it happen for them to become that social operating system, Or do we not have a social operating system? Or maybe does some new player that emerges with some new way of achieving that, create it?
David, your book is excellent on many levels, but I think the thing that's most memorable about it is your portrayal of Mark Zuckerberg. You obviously got pretty close to him. Some people perhaps say you were too close, but I thought it was a very...
Your former boss would say that.
Yeah, my boss?
I mean, at TechCrunch.
Right. Mike Harrington, I don't think was so crazy about your book, but...
Well, he said it was a must-read. So.
Yeah, a must-read and a must-burn, right?
No, he didn't say must-burn. He just said that I was conflicted in some way. Because, you know why? Because I didn't go interview the Winklevoss twins. That's
well, anyway, but back to Zuckerberg. I thought you described him as a very complex, but also an incredibly smart guy.
Well, I still think that, yeah.
It seems as if his role, if anything, since you've written the book, has become even more central, even more important within Facebook. How are you seeing Zuckerberg holding up, and how do you envisaging him developing as a CEO of this increasingly important company?
Well, I actually disagree. I think his role is as central as it has ever been, and I think that's...
Well, no, I think I just said that.
No, you said it's more important. I think it was really important then, and I think it's really important now. I think it's always been, he's been the central figure. He has extraordinary clout and influence, even as much today as he did when Facebook had 1 million users in late 2004. That's an amazing achievement. He really has grown into being a CEO quite surprisingly well. I mean, through things like hiring Sheryl Sandberg, through being very clear about what he wanted to be involved in, which is primarily product development and strategy, and the things he was willing to delegate to others, which is like advertising, building the new buildings, spreading globally, these things. He's had extraordinary team members who could do that for him, and he just thought about the product, and he still does. And I think he has retained his almost outsized influence and respect inside the organization, and there's no sign of it diminishing.
How important is he now, though, in terms of defining the future of the company? Because you've suggested that you fear Facebook could become too dependent on Wall Street, too dependent on short-term profit. Are you saying that Mark Zuckerberg himself has to make that choice about the kind of company that Facebook becomes?
Basically, yes. I do think he does. I think as Mark decides, so will Facebook go. And that really is irrelevant to whether it's public or not. I think it's how he decides to deal with the pressures that occur when Facebook goes public, how much he wants to toe the line that Wall Street wants towed. And he has, still, I'm not positive exactly how the board is structured now that it has more members, but my suspicion is he still has some degree of absolute authority if he chooses to exercise it. And, which is, I always thought somewhat healthy for Facebook in that, I believe he has good values. But I also, as I said in that session, worry, if it's all on him, what happens if he gets hit by a bus? And who would it be on if it wasn't him? And what would their values be? And what would be the chance that Facebook's, I think, quite high-minded values that it operates under today were maintained in a future universe where he, for whatever reason, wasn't there? And we don't know the answer, but that worries me. I don't know if the structure is there to sustain it, in his absence.
Well, David Kirkpatrick, the author of The Facebook Effect, which I think is a central reading for anyone who wants to understand both Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg. Thank you so much for appearing on TechCrunch TV.
Thanks, Andrew. Really good talking to you.